This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today it's Thursday. It's December 7th, 2023. Thank you for joining us at The Truth Central. We're doing a podcast every weekday. Today is Pearl Harbor Day. For all of you out there, this is the day World War II started when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. And I want to remind everyone that we have done a 3-hour interview, very excellent program here with Doug Horne. Doug Horne has written 2 volumes on the McCallum Memorandum. This is on the theory that FDR had baited the Japanese into attacking Pearl Harbor because it was the only way to get the United States into World War II. It's a very controversial theory, but I believe it's true, and it goes into the theme of how much we live in a intelligence-crafted reality, a Truman Show, as it were. Doug Horne's a brilliant guy. He also was on the Assassinations Records Review Board on the John Kennedy assassination. And what Doug Horne was able to do there is establish he did 5 volumes on the medical records demonstrating that Jack Kennedy was shot from the front. And I will have a book out with David Mantic on that very, very soon. I'm actually going to submit it to typesetting today. I've been working on this since early this year, since about April. But do listen to this Douglas Horne 3 hours. It's going to be an exceptionally good program, and I really want to feature it. Doug Horne's become a good friend, and I truly admire his work. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant guy, very hardworking, former Navy. I think his work is genius-level work. The dedication to which he's pursued these topics. You'll find his explanations extremely good, and it's well worth listening to. We've got a lot of news to cover today. I want to start out with what's going on in the Israel war. Biden has just now told Congress. Congress yesterday balked. We'll get to that in a minute, but they're not passing his additional funding for Ukraine. So Biden is saying here that Israel has until January to end its incursion into the Gaza Strip. Now, first of all, who's Biden to tell Israel what its national policy ought to be? But this has been going on for a long time. I've reported it over the years. When Obama was in the White House and even back to 2009, Israel was trying to get rid of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Obama threatened to cut off their military resupply if they didn't end the incursion. Obama also in 2009 was in Cairo proclaiming how he'd experienced Islam on 3 continents after he had campaigned that he was not a Muslim, despite having attended school in Indonesia with his stepfather, Lolo Sotoro, registered into a school in Indonesia as a Muslim. We have the records of that from the school. Lies, 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 and more lies. So what's going on in the Gaza is that, of course, Israel is now focusing on the southern part of Gaza. Gaza is this narrow little strip of land in Israel on the Mediterranean, just north of Egypt. So you've got some 2 million people, 1.87, who have been driven from their homes in the Gaza, and they're now all piling up, the civilians and children, into the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Israel first went after Gaza City in the north. It's now going after the second largest city, which is this Khan Yunis in the south of the Gaza. And Israel's determined to root out Hamas, a terrorist organization backed by Iran, from the Gaza Strip. Hamas is responsible for the October 7th brutal assault on Israel, where over 1,000 people were killed in a barbaric way, some beheaded, raped, just horrible violence. And now the United Nations, of course, which has backed Hamas all along, and is very determinedly trying to get a Palestinian state, and would probably be not unhappy to see the Jews out of Israel. Israel's being accused of attacking civilians, killing children, squeezing people into smaller and smaller areas of the south. Israel, as far as Israel is concerned, they are aware of the pressure. And Netanyahu has been saying that they will continue the operations. They believe that they'll be able to do most of the operations in January and then just scale down the military activity once they've really gotten rid of Hamas and destroyed these tunnels that Hamas has dug underneath the Gaza Strip. Again, this continues to have the potential to expand, but Iran right now is held off from going to unleash Hezbollah in the north against Israel, which would open up a two-front war. By the way, I see some articles out today about how the deplorable state in which our Navy is. We've now got battle groups all over deployed. We've had all of our carriers deployed at one time, which is unique. The military is down from about 795 battle-ready ships to just under 300. The woke Navy has been missing its recruitment targets for years, and the deployments are getting longer and longer, and suicides in the Navy are increasing. We have a broke Navy that is not able to handle the world as we're facing it, with crises going on simultaneously in various parts of the world. The Middle East could expand that war easily, with Iran pushing Hezbollah, or Syria, ISIS still groups in Syria that could attack through the Golan Heights. All these things are potential dangers. At the same time, we've got the war in Ukraine, which we'll talk about in a minute, and Taiwan is sitting on the brink of being attacked by China any day China decides to do it. But what's happening here is that while Israel is being pressured to stop the incursion, if we turn to Ukraine, the Senate Republicans yesterday blocked the Biden Ukraine aid package. And what Biden did was he gave a speech from the White House, another pathetic speech. And now what they're saying is that the Republicans and the Senate, or the GOP in general, are going to lose the war in Ukraine because we won't continue the funding. Now, it said Biden was saying Congress needs to pass supplemental funding for the United States before they break for the holiday recess. He said, otherwise, we're giving Putin the greatest gift he can hope for by abandoning our global leadership. He said, if we walk away, how many of our European friends are going to continue to fight, and at what rates are they going to continue to fund? Now, Biden actually kind of went over the insane top, because he said that not funding the Ukraine war and carrying it to completion and success is going to raise the possibility that U.S. troops will be fighting Russian troops. His fear-mongering is that Russia will now try to go into Finland and militarily to oppose Finland's entry into NATO. I think the State Department is worried, finally, that it's become so aggressive against Russia, pushing in Ukraine and Finland to expand NATO right to the edge of Russia, that now they realize the American people are sick and tired of this, and sick and tired of funding billions of dollars that get wasted and spent on the military-industrial complex. If money's the cause of all these wars, which it is, and the peace lovers are driven out by the warmongers, and there's a lot of money to be made in war. The military-industrial complex that we were warned about by Dwight Eisenhower, I think, and the book I'm coming out with, JFK, will say was responsible for killing Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy wanted to reach out to Khrushchev. He wanted a test ban on nuclear weapons. He was giving speeches at American universities saying that we do not need to have Russia as an enemy. That's not what the military-industrial complex wanted to hear. Military-industrial complex likes war. State Department likes war. Pentagon likes war. It's profitable. And these people are looking for where they're going to retire. They'll retire in the private sector, where the arms dealers will be happy to get the generals and the admirals into their ranks, pay them off. About money. The idea that we can have Ukraine win the war is a lost idea. And what is Zelensky doing? Well, he's partnering up in Mexico City with Janet Yellen, and they are both down there saying the United States is going to lose the war, and we're going to blame the Republican Party for it in the election in 2024. You can see the election meme already developing. And with this kind of a warmongering attitude, what you've got is a Biden that will not admit that this whole failed war has been failed from the beginning, and the whole idea that Ukraine was going to resist the Russian military was insane. The Ukrainian army is in defeat. It has not had a successful counter attack. They've gotten less than 1% of the land that Russia's taken in Ukraine back. Russia's in a solid position in the eastern part of Ukraine that is largely Russian-speaking, and on the Black Sea, including Crimea. The only port I think that Russia does not control is Odessa, and Russia could take Odessa and probably will. The point is that Biden's corruption with Ukraine is massive. The Department of Justice will do nothing about it. We have the building of a global oligarchy starting in the United States with the payoffs from these oligarchs in Ukraine to Hillary Clinton starting in 2013-14 when she was Secretary of State, and just afterwards. She had her private email server. She was running Clinton Foundation business out of the State Department. Obama knew it, didn't care, was happy for her to get rich and happy for Vice President, then Biden, to go get rich in Ukraine and Russia and China. He took money out of Russian oligarchs. He took money from Chinese oligarchs, Ukraine oligarchs, just as Hillary was working with every other criminal factor in the world was willing to pay her money. This oligarchical move towards a few people having massive wealth, while the middle class is destroyed worldwide, is going to destabilize not only the United States, it's going to destabilize the Western world. And a destabilized world weakened by internal conflicts, by woke, by an influx of Muslims into Europe who will not assimilate. All these are potential problems for the future, and they will not easily go away. Ukraine is going to lose the war. We're going to be spending more trillions of dollars that we don't have. We're already going to head towards $34 trillion faster in national debt, faster than we got to the first $30 trillion. And the dizzying amount with which we are printing money has now caused the bond market to demand very high rates in order to sell U.S. treasuries. This is not a formula for success. This is a formula for a collapse. And Biden and the GOP are at odds with each other. Biden probably will not run. He's making statements like, I would only run if Donald Trump is in the election. Well, if the Democrats think that they can win with Biden again, they're crazy. They'll have to cheat. And they're more than happy to do that. And the problem is that when you look at the reality of our politics, it's broken. Kevin McCarthy is going to quit. He's going to pick up his tent and go home because he's not majority. He's not Speaker of the House any longer. Or he's not, he's not the leader of the GOP in the House. He's just not in that Speaker of the House position. Now he got a position from Nancy Pelosi, and then his own GOP ousted him. It's disgraceful for him. So he's just going to pick up his tent and go home and make money. The entire Washington establishment is corrupt to the core. There's very few that don't come out of Washington wealthy unless they're honest. And there's very few of those. Chris, would you like to comment on this? We're going to then transition to the next subjects.
Well, a couple of things. You did mention that old Joe is claiming that he's the only guy to defeat Donald Trump. He said this to a bunch of donors in, let's say, well, we're paraphrasing that. Yesterday, after those Ukraine comments you mentioned earlier today, he told reporters that about 50 or so Democrats could beat him. If you'd like to hear that, I can play that for you,
You
by
play
the
that. That's
way.
good. Yeah, play that. Let's hear
Yeah.
that.
All right. You see this? It's the end of the Ukraine session. He's walking off, and reporters are pelting him with questions about the Hunter Biden thing, and he's denying. He's saying that all the accusations were lies as far as the impeachment inquiry. But here's what happened afterwards.
Do you think there is any Democrat who could defeat Donald Trump other than you?
Probably 50 of them.
You do believe that there are?
I'm not the only one defeated, but I will defeat him.
Who else do you think could defeat Donald Trump as the president?
There's a creepy guy.
He really is. I'll tell you. And also, I don't know what they do to get him to be cogent for 10 minutes, but then they put him on vacation and get him out of there and make, his whole day, I think, is probably occupied by taking naps. I don't see that he's really working very hard, and I don't know who's running the country, but this is a disgraceful situation that we're in as internal politics, and the mainstream media won't report it.
Whoever's running this country seems to be allowing all these things to happen, and Venezuela is now taking advantage, annexing or announcing its annexation of part of Guyana. Incidentally, it's the part of Guyana that actually has oil. It recently discovered oil.
Surprise, surprise. There's oil everywhere. I mean, there's oil all over the world. It's naturally produced in the mantle of the earth. It's not fossil fuel. It upgasses in the oceans and the ocean floors. So here we go. Venezuela's Maduro pledges to permit oil mines development in disputed territory. Yeah, well, okay. So, look, Venezuela is also now under socialist control.
Right. So friends of people who are running the country, if you will.
Yeah, and the people who make $100 a month in Venezuela are able to live, and the problem is you can't make $100. And you take $100 to the grocery store here and see how much it buys, and you can see we're on the road to Venezuela, especially if the communists and socialists continue. By the way, there's disturbing stories continue coming out of the universities of the support for Hamas.
Yeah.
I mean, Hamas is a terrorist group, and the universities have lost the idea that they want to support Israel. The tension against Israel, I don't think anti-Semitism against Israel has been more intense in my lifetime than it is today. And across Europe, we've got all these Muslim factions which hate and are determined to destroy Israel. And so we're building here a crescendo, which is going to, sooner or later, when Iran develops nuclear weapons, is going to be a cataclysmic confrontation between Israel and Iran. And I've been writing about this and warning about this since 2005 and 2006. Chris?
I'm agreeing with you here, without a doubt. That it sounds like it's going that way. We used to talk about the war between U.S. and Russia that's going to happen, but you're right. This is going to come to a head in the Middle East, and that's where the World War could start.
Yeah, and gold today is at $2,000 and $2,050. It's an all-time high. Quickly get a copy of the free book, How the Coming Global Crash Will Create an Historic Gold Rush. I've co-authored it with Dean Heskin, who's the CEO of Swiss America. And if you look at our sponsors and click down on Swiss America, you can see the form to fill out. First time people interested. By the way, the 800 number to get the free book is 800-519-6268. Call Swiss America. Talk to them about getting your IRAs and your 401ks out of the stock market before it does crash, which it is going to do sooner or later with all the excess credit we have and the credit crunch is coming. Free book of How the Coming Global Crash Will Create an Historic Gold Rush, which looks like it's begun. 800-519-6268. Okay, let's transition here now to energy, because I've got a lot I want to report today on energy. There's a very interesting article out in the Real Clear Wire today on energy, contrasting the reality of this energy transition to the rhetoric of this transition. Now, this is an essay that was developed it's by Mark Mills. Mark Mills is I believe he's a lawyer. Let's see down here at the bottom. He's a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and he's faculty fellow at the Northwestern University's McCormick School of Engineering and Applied Science. That's what it is. He is a strategic partner with Montrose Lane, an energy tech venture fund. And he's written a book called The Cloud Revolution, How the Convergence of New Technologies Will Unleash the Next Economic Boom in a Roaring 2020s. I've read the book. It's a good book. I think he's wrong, though, about the 2020s being a roaring economic time. I think we're poised for a great global collapse. At any rate, what he's saying here is that going back to the 1977 speech by Jimmy Carter, which became known as the Meow speech, M-E-O-W, like cat meow, Carter said the energy challenge was the moral equivalent of war. That's where the meow comes, the moral equivalent of war. It's an acronym. Well, Carter at that time was saying we're going to run out of oil. We needed these, and he had his cardigan on. We had to lower our temperatures, and sitting in the White House telling us all to turn down our thermostats. Well, of course, we did not run out of oil. That was based on the idea that oil was fossil fuel. There were only so many fossils. There could only be so much oil. More nonsense propagated by the resource alarmists and the left to end capitalism, stop us from using hydrocarbon fuels. Well, now, after nearly half century of this transition politics, massive government spending since the Meow speech, oil and natural gas and coal still supply 82% of global energy. Since Y2K, we've seen over $5 trillion of global spending on wind, solar, and similar other failed attempts to get rid of hydrocarbon fuels. Now, all this money, $5 trillion, has reduced hydrocarbon share of world energy by just 2 percentage points. Hydrocarbon fuels consumed globally are increasing because the world understands that you cannot maintain a modern industrial state without hydrocarbon fuels. So 2 decades of spending has led to solar and wind combined supplying under 4% of world energy. For context, burning wood supplies 10%. I mean, these are remarkably, fundamentally bad ideas. The solar and wind. Wind doesn't blow all the time. Sun doesn't shine all the time. The amount, of rare earth minerals that we have to have for the batteries, underlying physics here indicate that wind, solar, and battery hardware is going to demand a rapid range of minerals from copper to nickel to aluminum to graphite, and rare earth minerals such as neodymium, Neodymium. So there ranges from 700% to 4,000% more minerals per unit of energy production. So, hydrocarbon fuels can be combusted. They're ready all the time. Wind and solar has to be stored in a battery. And even then, if the wind isn't blowing, you can't recharge the battery with wind or solar if the sun's not shining. It's a fundamentally stupid and silly idea that wind and solar can replace hydrocarbon fuels. At the meantime, we're just now shutting down, the Biden administration is shutting down and restricting U.S. production of hydrocarbon fuels. If we just expanded liquid natural gas and began exporting it again, as we were doing under Donald Trump, that would do more to reduce carbon emissions than anything else, because burning natural gas releases fewer carbon dioxide molecules into the atmosphere than burning coal or oil. At any rate, we are not dealing with reality here. We are dealing with a cult. And this cult is insane in terms of its determination. And it's, the book I've written about the truth about energy, global warming, and climate change indicates the 2 roots of the climate craze movement are depopulation, too many people, Malthusian. We need to reduce the number of people in the world. And to do that, we need to attack hydrocarbon fuels because they emit carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not a major greenhouse gas. 70% of all greenhouse gases are water vapor. The climate is far more complex and a little bit more carbon dioxide. And by the way, sun cycle 24, which was the last cycle just ended, was a solar minimum. It looks to me like sun cycle 25 is starting out as a solar minimum too. That could mean if we have 20 years of solar minimums, the Earth is actually going to start cooling off, which will be great irony to these climate freaks and a great disgrace to their science. I think Biden's the worst president in U.S. history, and that takes a lot. You got Jimmy Carter to compete with. You've got other former presidents whom nobody hardly knows anything about, James Buchanan, etc., where very few Americans can even tell you who he was today because we don't teach American history anymore. Okay, let's go back to two more stories which I think really illustrate exactly where we are in this energy transition to green, which has got to be one of the most pathetically stupid ideas in human history. Okay, so Europe tried the green and it failed. The architect of the European Green New Deal is resigned, and from all signs, the elections next year across Europe are going to move to the right. So the European Parliament is now having difficulty getting past all these transitions to green energy deals. The name European Green Deal, modeled after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, another of the dim lights in the Democratic pantheon of neo-Marxist stars, it promised to cut greenhouse gas and have healthier lifestyles for consumers. The problem is the implementation price tag of $285 billion. The EU did not account for the ripple effects of the policy, ignoring its impact assessments. The majority of models presented in the assessment anticipated that the gross domestic product will contract. The contraction is linked to a decline in employment, consumption, and exports, all of which happen when the economy becomes inflationary because of higher energy costs. Companies close down or relocate because Germany is deindustrializing. So the countries which are heavily dependent on export industries are going to be severely hurt, like Germany, while services such as the financial industry have less impact. The financial industry is hurt because of the general decline in the economy. So the German energy shift, going quickly to wind and solar, has led subsidized programs, but subsidizing this green transition, but sharp increases in energy prices, housing, and water, all projected to continue, perhaps as much as 70% over the next year or two. And employment in the energy sectors, including coal and gas, could drop by more than 15%, affecting thousands of jobs. So the Dutch government trying to buy out the livestock farmers from their cows led to the Dutch farmer protests. You have conservatives winning elections, pushback against Brussels' green policies. You see many parliamentarians are now in fear of their re-election. They should all be voted out. As far as I'm concerned, the European Parliament ought to be dissolved. The European Union is another great exercise in imaginary thinking. So the architect of the Green New Deal, who's the politician Frans Timmermans, resigned recently to try his luck at national politics. French President Macron believes that his agricultural reform should not be on the table as the war continues in Ukraine, and Central and Eastern European countries consider many of the planned reforms as discriminatory, and they want to get free from the bonds of the EU. The EU's push for green energy could be the end of the EU, and that will be the best thing the green movement could have accomplished in the last 50 years. Okay, let's do one more story on all this transition nonsense. And 1 second, I'll pull it up here. Okay, so the This one is also remarkable. You have this, what was called now climate colonialism. So we have this carbon credit scheme in which if you're using too much carbon, you can buy credits on the European carbon. They're taxing the air you breathe. Okay, they finally found out a way to tax the air you breathe. Now, what these companies that broker carbon credits are doing, and there's a big one set up in the Far East, is that they are buying land in Africa because Africa, as they're saying, is reforesting. So they can trade off the credits that they have from Africa to European countries that can't reduce their carbon emissions. So Western carbon offset companies look to lock up a tenth of Liberia's land mass, a fifth of Zimbabwe's, large sections of Kenya, Zambia, and Tanzania. Okay, so that's great. Now, colonialism is reintroduced by these Western carbon countries, Blue Carbon, a private company whose founder and chair, Sheikh Ahmed Damouk Al Maktoum, is a member of the Dubai royal family. He's in discussions to buy management rights to millions of acres of land in Africa. The scale is enormous. The negotiations involve potential deals for about a tenth of Liberia's landmass, a fifth of Zimbabwe's, and large swaths of Kenya, Zambia, and Tanzania. Blue Carbon's intention is to sell emission reductions linked to forest conservation in these African countries as carbon credits under an unfinished international accounting framework for carbon markets being designed by the UN, a market that is being designed for and by governments. Blue Carbon is among the most active private brokers. The UN, again, instead of sending in UN peace forces to rape the local population, is now going to encourage climate colonialism. I think if we could get rid of the UN and the EU, we'd be doing the world a great favor. Russia has a nation-state interest in getting access to the Atlantic. It is not going to take kindly to Finland being in the NATO. It's not going to take kindly to the push by the State Department and George Soros to get Ukraine into NATO. The fact is, these are geopolitical insanities. Chris, do you want to comment?
It's absolute craziness. They'll think of anything, and you're right. We used to joke back in the 1990s and 2000s when I was doing a radio on a regular basis, talk radio, that they're going to find a way to tax the air. You knew it. It was a joke for a long time, but then you kind of thought there had to be a way. And look at it today. They found a way to tax the air. Combine that with all the craziness going on at COP28, telling us not to eat beef and going against dairy farmers. Do they really think this is the wave of the future? Do they really think that they can, let's just say, make sure elections happen in their favor enough against public sentiment, against these destructive policies?
Well, the answer is what they have been doing. Since they control the media internationally, since the CIA and the intelligence agencies are in control of creating this Truman Show. You know what I mean by Truman Show? It was a movie.
I saw the movie, yes.
Yeah, in which...
Not a big Jim Carrey guy, but I saw the movie.
Jim Carrey was living in this reality that was constructed on an island and be conditioned to be afraid of water, so he wouldn't leave the island. And it was a production show that he was living in. All the people he was dealing with, he thought were his friends and neighbors, were actors. And behind the scenes, there were cameras everywhere, and they were producing a television show of his life. And the idea is that CIA, and now with the Operation Mockingbird, controlling news agencies, controlling the rhetoric, monitoring and censoring social media in conjunction with Facebook and the other social media giants.
So a small North Korea. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're living in a constructed reality where all we're being done is fed lies, 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 lies until we believe them. And this climate craziness is one of the biggest lies that's ever been propagated on humanity. But then it was done by a group of globalists who want to control the world by destroying capitalism. And they'll put their new dystopian government totalitarian rule in place, emulating China. That's their goal.
And when they're asked questions about this, Dr. Corsi, when they're asked questions about this, they're going to respond the same way the dean of Harvard responded to Congress the other day during the hearing you mentioned earlier when they were discussing anti-Semitism in the schools. She was just reading off a piece of paper. We do not approve of, and just saying the same thing over and over again to deflect questions that were being asked of her. That's what's happening with these people too.
Christopher Wray, questioned about Biden corruption and why he's doing nothing, says we have an ongoing investigation. I cannot comment.
Yeah.
Being asked why the Department of Justice is political today and going after Christians who like the Catholic maths and Latin, and no one's fired for that. He says, I'm sorry, there's an internal investigation going on. We cannot comment. Well, we need to get rid of these people. These people are serving the interests of a destructive agenda. And again, written books on it, the truth about this neo-Marxism, colonial Maoism, and it leads to anarchy. These people can only destroy. And they're actively at work destroying a world that was productive, but productive because of capitalism, productive because of the Judeo-Christian tradition, productive because of families, because of belief in God.
Well, there you go. You give people confidence, a means to produce things for themselves. The people who are trying to push this neo-Marxist agenda despise the idea of a productive society because they cannot control such a society.
Well, they despise human beings because human beings are messy and can't be herded together.
Except for them.
And to obey their dictums. And what they want is they want wars, they want diseases. And by the way, there's this new pneumonia that's coming out of China, and it's beginning to hit the United States. We'll have another pandemic here, but it seems like children more than anybody else. But this is going to be another major, I think, another major health crisis that's coming along.
Let's see what the World Health Organization tries to pull now.
Oh, another lockdown, probably.
Right.
They love lockdowns. They like locking everybody up and nobody can move. Pretty soon they'll be boarding you up in your house and not letting you, like they did in China, cementing you in your house and letting you die. We exhale carbon dioxide, so therefore these crazy nuts of the climate movement think that we are the blight on Earth. So do us all a favor, they would say, and just commit suicide, euthanasia, save us the trouble. You're going to die anyway. Why exhale more carbon dioxide? We're getting rid of cows because they fart methane.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get rid of human beings because they exhale carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a fundamental molecule that without which we would not have photosynthesis. We wouldn't have life on the face of the earth without carbon dioxide.
This is why we should infiltrate the language, like the left has. The left, when they want to disparage somebody, they call somebody some kind of denier, or they add a fruity word to something they want, a sparkly word to something that they really want to push. So here it is. We should start saying life-giving carbon dioxide, not just carbon dioxide, but life-giving carbon dioxide. So when we say they want to destroy or get rid of carbon dioxide, you can say the left wants to get rid of life-giving carbon dioxide. Those listening, let's add that to the lexicon here.
Well, truth is harder to form good memes around because it often has elements to it which are not pleasant. Okay, lies are always easy to disseminate because they're fundamentally reinforcing your fears. And that's one of the fundamental reasons the Bible says fear not continuously, because it takes a mature adult to face the truth. In wrapping up, the truth wins. God will win here. And the truth is the antidote. That's why this is the Truth Central. The books I'm writing are the truth about energy, global warming, climate change, the truth about neo-Marxism. The truth is what we have to seek and embrace. The truth is that a world without God is a world of chaos and anarchy. In the end, God will win. God will win here too. In the end, God always wins. God created this reality. God can eliminate this reality at any moment God chooses. The whole point is that the Bible gives us a solution. 2 Chronicles 7:14. We need to get on our knees, acknowledge God, and ask forgiveness for taking God out of our schools, out of our lives, out of our marriages, for introducing just principles of pleasure. we've become an hedonistic people, and that becomes selfish, not capable of higher values, because higher values are denied to exist. Atheism is an impossibility in language, because you have to tell me the idea of God to tell me you don't believe in it. Theism is God. So you say you're atheist. A in Greek is not. So you're atheist, you're not God. Or you just gave me the idea of God. Now, how can you give me the idea of something that doesn't exist? To say you don't believe in God. Well, maybe God doesn't believe in you. That might be the more fundamental problem. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says that if we do this, God will hear our prayer and heal our land. I think we're at the point where divine intervention is necessary. We're going to get a judgment of God. It's already started. And 2024 promises to be another year of madness, with the attempt to convict Donald Trump of some felony so he can't vote, even though he can still run for president, even from prison. Eugene Debs did it in 1917. He was a socialist labor organizer, railroad unions. Debs was imprisoned for a speech he gave in Dayton, Ohio, that violated these acts, the Yellen and Sedition Acts, the various acts passed during World War I to stop free speech. And again, we have that kind of move going on. Debs ran for president, I believe in 1920, from prison, and got over 1 million votes. Donald Trump could win an election from prison. And even in last night's ridiculous debate with 3 GOP losers on the stage trying to gain advantage against one another with stupid maneuvers like holding up a sign that's saying this one's a crook, that one's a crook. They're all crooks in a sense, fundamentally. And no one cares about these Republican candidates. Donald Trump was the winner of the last night's debate, and he didn't even show up. It's an insane world that we're living in right at the moment. And the bright light about it is that the insanity, and when people say, let's judge this tree by its fruits, and they see the anarchy, will come back to God and come back to truth, because it's the only solid rock in human existence. It's Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today is Thursday. It's December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, 2023. This is thetruthcentral.com. We're broadcasting on a lot of channels. Upper right-hand corner of the website, you can see we're on iHeart, we're on Rumble, BitChute. We're on a number of different channels, both audio only and as a podcast with video. Follow us, like us, share the word. thetruthcentral.com. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. God bless.